Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi. Great. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Morning. I say good day. I plan to say good day, everyone. Bugger that up. Before I mention everyone that's here, just so you know, if you're a regular watcher, we're doing this at a different time. So it's a couple of hours earlier. We're going to try and do this on the last Thursday of every month, basically to make it a little bit easier for people in Australia and people in various other countries where maybe it fits better in with their lunch break. We'll see how it goes. And of course, in the not too distant future, we're going to have that thing that we had last year where our clocks change in different directions. So we'll be going 2 hours further apart than we are now in time zones. So hopefully this will still mean we can consistently all be on together if we're sticking at 8 o'clock. I think it's 8 o'clock. Is it Melbourne that you're in, Arran? Or near?
Oh, close to me. Yeah, I'm about an hour and a bit away from Melbourne, so down in Geelong. But yeah, same time zone all along the East Coast where both Corey and I are.
Yeah, and Corey's
Ray as well. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Is that near where you are as well, Corey?
No, I'm probably about 12 hours away from the border, from where Arran is.
That's the whole length of my country.
Yeah, I'm like halfway between Sydney and Brisbane. No, Sydney and Coffs Harbour.
Oh, so are you a different time zone to Arran?
No, we're the same time zone. It's East Coast.
What about you, Ray? You're near Arran, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm in Melbourne, about an hour away.
Fantastic.
So the whole east coast of Australia, I think about 90% of the population live along the east coast, and it's all the one time zone along there. Then in the middle, I think there's another one, and then out west, Western Australia is about a 4-hour difference.
Cool. And then we've got today with us Owen, who some of you will know from the chats because you seem to be here every week, a regular Owen. But you're not in Australia. Oh, is Owen frozen?
No.
I can't see him on the stream, but I can see him up on the
we're just waiting patiently and listening intently.
Can you guys see or hear me?
I can definitely hear you. I'm just going to hide you on the stream and put you back on. Yeah, Owen, your picture's gone for some reason.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can fix that.
Okay. We'll get back to Owen in a minute. But basically, if anyone is watching this who is a regular or new to it, we want it to be a bit of a community. So if ever you want to join in, just let me know. You're always welcome. We've got some guests lined up coming for the next few months who will be on at set times, and maybe then we'll be focusing on them. Whereas today we're having a bit of an open discussion. I'm sure we'll end up talking about what guitars or the guitar industry or selling or performing is like a bit in Ireland when we've got Owen back. Owen, I've lost you completely. It might be easier, Owen, to just totally log out and log back in. I'm not sure. There we go. I'll keep an eye on him coming in. Look, I was showing Aaron, I've got some Vegemite handy.
You have to import that?
No, my wife used to live in Australia and loved it. Loved Vegemite, and everywhere sells it here now.
Now, is that full load, Daniel, or have you been eating it?
I don't eat it. We got through it quite quickly, though. Oh, Owen's back. I think he's working. There we go.
Am I back?
Yeah,
hey.
You're back and working. Fantastic.
Morning. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. So, Owen, you're based in Cork, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Cork in the very south of Ireland. So it's great to see everybody face to face for a change as opposed to in a Facebook group. So I'm relatively new to guitar building. I watched everything going on during GGBOs and for the last 2 or 3 years, and just decided to eventually just pull the trigger and get into building a guitar, and it's been great.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, it looks great too. That's working on.
Yeah, I've seen.
It's not bad, yeah.
If some of you aren't on our Facebook group, Owen's posted a number of pictures recently of your Telecaster you're building.
Yeah, that's it back there. So it's getting there, but I guess the most important thing for me was I this is going to sound very very strange to say, but I didn't want my first guitar build to look like a first guitar build. So I've been watching everybody's channels for like the last 2-3 years, picking up tips and tricks and which tools to use and all the different methodologies to work through, and it's turned out okay. I may have had 1 or 2 mistakes, but like for a first guitar, it hasn't fallen apart yet. So that's good.
Fantastic.
That looks great.
So how did you know you were ready at this point to start? If you've been waiting long?
So I guess for context, I don't have any background in woodworking. I got thrown in at the deep end. I bought this house from Sweden in 2019, and it got delivered, and the outside of the house got assembled, and I took it on as a DIY job to finish it on the inside. So I had to do all the framing, all the carpentry, all the tiling, all the plumbing, all that type of stuff. And I had to learn as I was going, and I ended up when I was finished with a lot of tools. And I was going, what am I going to do with all these tools that I have? I have no idea. I need a new hobby. And then COVID happened, and everybody started posting these GGBO videos, and I decided, yeah, this is it. I'm going to get into it. So I didn't have enough tools, obviously, and I just kept buying more and more. And it kind of came to a threshold, I think, around November, December last year, when I thought, right, I don't have everything, but I have enough to get going. And when I get to a point where I need the next tool or the next chisel or whatever it is, I'll buy it then, but I have enough to get going. And that was about it. So just said, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And just bought some wood and started carving.
I think you could probably say you're the only person that's ever got into guitar building because you were building a house from Sweden. Amazing.
Probably.
But how long did it take to do all the work inside?
I started in January 2019, and I had enough of the house done to move in just before Christmas, but I only worked on weekends and the occasional nights. So yeah, it was good. All my holidays from work as well. But yeah, I guess if you were to condense it down, probably 3 months. But that was protracted out over the year.
Amazing.
So, do you consider the house finished?
I do. Yeah, I've 1 bathroom left to do. There's always something left to do, right? But yeah, it's mostly done. I don't think it's ever truly done. I don't think we'll ever get to that stage with any of our houses.
Yeah, having done a lot of renovations myself over the years, it's sort of like I always look back at it and go, all right, it's done, it's finished. But I might come back and just put another coat over it.
Yeah, that's how it goes. All right. So yeah, but it's done enough. It's done enough now that I can focus on stuff like guitar building. Whereas before I would have had a guilty complex because something wasn't finished or something was needing my attention. At least now I can when I go out to the garage and do a few bits, I kind of do it with a clean conscience.
So I don't want to make it all about you, Owen, because you weren't prepared for this, but the space you're in looks amazing. So clearly you've got a background of playing guitars. How did that help with the building, or how did it connect, do you think?
So I think definitely it gave me an inkling as to what I like. So this is just a little home rehearsal studio place here that my band come and we jam in. There's a drum kit over here and stuff like that. And I guess just having a different selection of instruments kind of informed me around the type of guitars I like. I'm very much more into modern style guitars, modern neck shapes, modern electronics. I'm probably one of those weirdos that really likes Floyd Roses as opposed to standard tremolos. There's not many of us out there, but there's a few of us to know that we are indeed special and like the weird things in life. And it really just that kind of informed me as to what I wanted to do. And there's a trend in most of the guitars over here that they're all natural wooden finishes. And you know, one thing that I've loved about the natural wood finishes playing them live is that it doesn't matter if you ding them or dent them. That adds character to the instrument. Whereas this guitar here is a 6-string Ernie Ball bongo with the most limited edition flip paint finish you've ever seen from the factory. And I had it a month and I chipped the headstock on it and I was heartbroken because you could see the paint had just knocked off it straight away. So that kind of made me think, yeah, I really like wooden finishes even more now. So yeah, that's kind of where I lean towards.
That's really interesting because I know a lot of builders like the wooden finish, and we've talked about that before, but I never really thought about as a player what the sort of advantage of not having the paint on. And obviously that damage showing, because you're right, it shows so clearly with a flat colour, and less so with the wood finish is quite important.
And then over here, this first classical guitar here, and I don't know if it can be made out, but the violin next to it, kind of hanging in between the two guitars, my brother made those. So he's an amateur luthier, but he's living in a completely different city, and he's mostly a violin maker. But yeah, he decided, I'll see if I can get it down actually. Yeah, so he's made this. And that's his hobby. So he just bangs one of these out every 2 or 3 months, sitting on the couch at night, and he sells them off to his students and things. But yeah, he's been a great source of advice, but more towards the classical side of things. So there's been a lot of concepts around electrics that I've had to really rely on people like Gio from Tornelli or Scott from Sweet Tea to kind of inform me on. They've both been amazing to answer questions. But things that wouldn't be in my brother's world, like, you know, which frets to pick, how to put them in, how to radius your board, those types of things, how to do binding, they just really aren't the same in the classical violin sphere.
Have any of you built anything other than guitars before?
I've built, I've I'd sort of started with the cigar box sort of style guitar, guitars to get into it. My first probably electric guitar build was a lap slide guitar, which I kind of started, before building 6-string electrics. And it was one of those things that it was before there was a lot of information on the internet. And I think I bought a how-to book of how to build it. It was, step by step. And actually did all the woodwork on that first, and then got up to the stage of having to buy hardware for it, and pretty much chickened out. It was, I sort of priced how much I'd have to pay for the pickups and things. And at that stage, I didn't really back myself to be able to do it. So I basically sat in the cupboard for about 5 or 6 years, and then, eventually sort of finished that one. So it's one I'm more finished just to know that I could, to have it as a finished project rather than something that I played a lot. But yeah, that was sort of in line with the cigar box guitar building, sort of starting off something that is a similar skill and leads into it. And then that's what I thought a lap slide guitar, I don't have to worry about truss rod. I don't have to worry. I put frets in it, but you're obviously not fretting the strings. So that whole issue went out. So a lot of kind of skills that I got to practice with that one, without a lot of the more technical things like, frets and truss rods and perfectly radius fretboards.
I've made a couple of electric ukuleles.
Oh, yes.
Basically the same as guitars, except they're tinier.
And
sorry?
And you've also made guitars with odd amount of strings as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I've been making 4-string guitars, which I finished one yesterday. They're based off what the Les Borland used in Limp Bizkit for a few songs.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a hybrid sort of bass guitar and the guitar sort of thing.
Do you think, because we were just chatting or we were chatting on text message, because Wes Borland had liked some of your posts recently and left a comment. Yeah. Do you think it's your builds that got him. He saw those your specific sort of ones based on his guitars that got him connected.
Yeah, I tried. The first one I tried was like a PR one, and I tagged him a couple of times, I think, and then out of the blue, he just started following and commented on a few. He commented on one at like at 3 o'clock this morning, and I couldn't get back to sleep after that.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's like it's just amazing. He took the time today just to say something nice about it. So
Yeah, amazing.
That is actually really cool.
It's amazing. And that guitar sound that you put up on Instagram, the new 4-string one, and I looked at that and I thought that's a beautiful bass. And I know we chatted about this on Instagram, and when you started playing it and I realized it wasn't a bass, I was like, this is actually something completely cooler than I expected it to be. It sounds amazing.
yeah, it's just it's based off the tuning he did, and the low string is like the F sharp on the second fret of the bass on the low E, and then the next one goes an octave higher, which is F sharp, and then B E. That's like just a really weird sort of. I suppose most of it's like 3/4 of it's like based off the same tuning they use in the Biscuit, just minus the low E from the guitar, and then it's a bass string.
What's the string gauge that you use on the 4?
On this one, I used 80 for the low F sharp.
Yeah.
46, 34, 24.
There's a really big difference between those first two.
Yeah. What he initially did, he had it so he could play octaves like really close together without having to skip the strings.
Mhm.
And then you can just play like massive, like open sort of bar chords, and it just sounds huge because of the lower string on it. But the problem is playing demos on it, you can only really play his songs because there's no other real songs with that sort of thing.
So was his?
Good for
I don't know
one
much
purpose.
about the history of it. Was his original ones then like purpose made for him, or did he modify something?
I think he modified a few Ibanez when he was endorsed with Ibanez.
Yep.
And then around Chocolate Starfish, he got this Italian guy to make a couple for him, and then PRS.
So one thing that I, looking back on my guitar playing when I was a teenager, the most I ever did was drop D. Occasionally, I might detune everything, but very rarely because I couldn't be bothered to tune it all back up again. But I wonder if I'd really been into Limp Bizkit and become aware of what you're saying, how it would have affected my playing. Because now, playing with a different tuning or playing even with a totally different setup like that feels quite inspirational and something quite interesting to try out.
Yeah, well, my playing's shit anyway, but like I've got like heaps of guitars in my room, so it's like I'm having that all in standard. So I try to get a them in like open D, or there was this tuning. It's DAD-ACE, and you get some really nice chords out of that, and then just variations on, drop D, drop C. Yoke's Cup one that I've finished today is in drop B. The telly, I've got really light strings on that end grain telly, so that's in standard, but it's basically an A string on the E string because it's just all end grain and I don't want it to collapse.
I remember
Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I remember when I was at university, some of my friends were into Joni Mitchell, and it was at the time where you could download tabs from the internet, but they were all kind of written in Word with numbers and little lines, and when you print them out, their from didn't line up, and I just couldn't
Oh,
work
yeah.
out what I was looking at all, because she plays everything in open or different tunings, not necessarily open tunings. And I remember just giving up, but I kind of wished I hadn't, because it could have opened up new things. Sorry, what were you about to say?
Well, I was just thinking about what you were saying earlier about how, had you have listened to, Limp Bizkit and Wes Borland as a teen, how would it have affected your playing? And I think I've just realised why I'm such a terrible guitarist, because as a teenager, it was Kurt Cobain for me. So never much of a guitarist, Kurt Cobain, and I think that's where I went wrong.
Yeah, I was well into Nirvana and playing along all the time.
If I had been more into Metallica or someone like that, I'd probably be a lot better guitarist. I just, Kurt was the man, and the goal was not set very high.
I only played a demo now, really.
Yeah.
I don't play like every now and then. Like I've got a little Jazzmaster uke that Fender put out a few years ago. I'll play that every now and then, but I barely play guitars that much.
Yeah, I've realised that I need to demo my guitars more, so I need to play and practice a bit more. But yeah, I'm like you. I'd much rather, if I had a free moment, work on building a guitar than playing one, I think.
I feel the same way. I mean, I sort of, when I'm playing, it's when I've got like a gig or a show coming up and I've got songs to learn and rehearse. But yeah, when I've got spare time, I kind of, I want to be in here sort of building rather than playing. And often a lot, for demos and things on YouTube, it's kind of the end of the process. So the guitar works and it's great fun and you can play and enjoy it. But it kind of feels like, I'd like to do better or longer demos, but I'm kind of ready to move on to the next kind of thing rather than put in the time to do it. And also the frustration of not being able to play cover songs and all that on YouTube is a bit frustrating as well. I often think that I need to do demos of the guitars, but just put it on Instagram where it's not going to get copyright issues and things like that. But yeah, I think when it comes to it, I think I often, if I don't have a goal or a focus or songs to learn and rehearse, then the incidental playing sort of doesn't happen as often.
So I've got a question to Owen and Ray, because you both got lots of guitars behind you and instruments behind you. I appreciate, Ray, a lot of those are your own ones you've built, so they're partly there because you built them. But if they're there to play, oh, we've lost Owen again. I was just going to ask, is it like Corey? Are they tuned a bit differently? Do you use them for different purposes? I guess that was maybe more applicable to Owen if he said that's his rehearsal space.
Probably more so to Owen, but look, I mean, at the end of the day, these are all in standard. I pretty much like when I was on last time, I mentioned that I sell my files, and basically I use that money to go towards guitar parts to build more guitars, and I essentially, when I start designing a guitar, I try to keep in mind that someone who hasn't built a guitar before and they're just a 3D printer, I guess, is probably going to be the one who's, building it. So I try to keep everything, I try not to get too fancy with the hardware and things like that. And then every now and again, I'll build one that's a little bit more special for myself that I like. So yeah, look, a lot of them, they're all in standard. But then again, even if I did use different tunings, or if I did put them in standard tunings, I still wouldn't use them. I hate to say it, but the vast majority of them, once I've finished the build, I rarely come back and play it again. I'm already on to the next guitar. I guess it's a case of, how can I put it? What I'm doing with 3D printing and guitars, there's no rule book. There's no rule book, and there's no there's not like there's millions of them out there that I can look at and take inspiration from. I see the guitars that you guys are building, and it's a case of, okay, can I do something similar in plastic, I guess. So it's basically just a challenge for myself. That's why the last two, the purple one there and the blue one down here, they're chambered, they're F-hole guitars, and because the general consensus had been, you can't do it.
Yeah,
well,
yeah, absolutely.
I did it, and I actually really like them.
Yeah,
no, they're the ones that keep coming back to playing.
They do look very cool, and I mean, you're not making them to play yourself. You're making them to challenge the design and make more, and then put the files out for other people.
Pretty much. People keep telling me I can't do it. And I don't like that.
I try to push
people say.
Owen, I think
do it like,
for some reason when your picture's small on the screen, it freezes, but when it's bigger, it seems fine. So I'll leave you large for a minute.
I was just going to say that people who say you can't do things should not, they shouldn't be holding up people who are already doing those things. And that always seems to be the way.
Yeah. Look, I completely agree. However, on the same hand, I don't want them to stop telling me that I can't do it. If they stop telling me, I'll probably stop doing it.
You want them to say, "Oh, you can do it, but you can't do this." The next bit
would be great.
Someone who tells you can't do something is never going to say, "Oh, I was wrong." I don't think. Yeah. So I was just asking Arran, out of interest, when you've got all your instruments up, are some of them used for certain types of playing? Are they tuned differently, or are they mainly part of a collection that you bought over years and don't want to get rid of?
So there's a bit of everything. There's a few normal electric guitars on this wall that you can't see. Everything back here is mostly bass. So it depends on the style. This was the first bass I bought, which is hideous. It's an ESP LTD 6-string, and it's got the most wonderful neck. I absolutely love the neck, and I think it's going to be the template for the neck I used when I build a 6-string bass at some point. But the body, I think, is made from depleted uranium. It weighs about 700 kilos. After 2 hours of gigging with it, you just have back pain like you have never experienced. It's awful in every way. And it seems to be made from 5 or 6 pieces of, I don't know, pine or some awful wood with a spalted maple top on it. Lovely guitar, but to play, but just not for any period of time. The one next to it is a Warwick from Germany. That's pretty much for rock, and it has some really interesting electronics that allow you to do crazy things like splitting the coils and swapping the phases and combining the single coil of the neck with the humbucker of the bridge and everything. It's really cool. I quickly got another 6-string, which was the Ernie Ball there. This is a Marcus Miller signature that I just wanted to try. It's got an interesting neck. The edges are all rolled over, so that's a very ergonomic bass to play, but it's just not one I've ever bonded with. The two here are both made by Mark Bass. So Mark Bass started making instruments a few years ago. This one is their I guess their second cheapest range. It's like $600 for a 5-string with an active preamp in there as well, and it's lovely. It plays really, really nice. And that's been replaced now. They have a new cheap line coming out at €300 for a bass, which is, I don't know, for kids it's great starting off. And then this one here is it's the one I use all the time, really. It's Richard Bonna's signature bass. It has an olive wood top on it, but the body is made from Val de Fiemme spruce, which is this mythical spruce that Stradivarius used in his violins, and it weighs nothing. The whole bass is less than 3 kilos. It's incredible. I just love that bass. It's a pleasure to play it every time I get up on stage with it. But everything else then is basically violins, classical guitars, acoustics, and then over here, kind of hidden away, there's a uke back there behind the double bass, and there's a mandolin here, because the mandolin is the same tuning as the as the fiddle, so it's easy to play. If you can play one, you can play the other.
A mandolin.
By the way,
No,
Brad,
is that
I was hoping to get him on today, but he's at a concert, a gig. But he'll be here on the next last Thursday of next month. The next time we do it at this time, he'll be on, and we can really focus on him, because a lot of you will know Brad from the Facebook group and lots of Guitar Builder Collective related things. So really want to find out a bit more about him. And actually, Mr. Glyn from Mr. Glyn's Pickups, was hoping to be here today, but he tested positive with COVID 2 days ago, and then was feeling better today, but a thunderstorm's taken out the power, and we're here. That's what you get living at the end of the world in a beautiful beached area, I think. No, that's not fair. Sorry, I interrupted you, Corey. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask whether that's a 3/4 bass, double bass.
Yeah, it's a 3/4 inch 5-string upright.
Oh wow! I had a 4-string one for a little while, and I didn't play it, so I ended up selling it.
Yeah, I really wanted one, and I was, I think I was very drunk one night. I think it was my birthday, and I went, screw it, I'm treating myself, and I bought it sight unseen, and it arrived in a box. And about a week later, I went, oh yeah, I bought that. Okay, cool. And I had to unbox it and figure out where to put it.
Seeing the living end, like about half hour away, and went, yeah, no, I'm going to get double bass for a bit. Couldn't play it for shit though. But
They're one of the best bands I've ever seen live, Corey.
yeah, no, awesome.
Living End, yeah. I didn't see them back in the day, but I've seen them at a few festivals since then, and watching them live, the energy that they have on stage is brilliant.
Yeah, I think I've seen them before COVID.
Yeah, okay.
And
is that Live Again? Did you say
the Living End?
Oh, I don't think I've heard of them.
They're Australian band, sort of from the 90s, sort of punk rock, but it's the 3-piece, and the bass player uses a double bass. But yeah, just super high energy. It's
like punk mixed in with rockabilly.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. They're inspired by like Stray Cats, and I don't know any other bands that they're probably one of the better Aussie live bands.
Definitely.
To me, they sort of have the sound that I was always hoping to hear from like the Brian Setzer Orchestra. You know, that sort of that rockabilly sound sort of thing, but they took it to the level that I was, always listening for and waiting for whenever I listened to Brian Setzer. So if you haven't heard of The Living End, you really need to check them out.
I'm just looking them up.
I'm going to note them down for later as well.
Yeah, they're up.
Throw in a few Aussie bands for our Australian time zoned live stream.
Well, Greenspoon used to be an awesome live band. I haven't seen them for years though. They got a new album coming out soon.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they put a new film clip out the other day, Monday, I think. The singer lives about it, like up the road, about an hour away. And the rest is spread out, I think. Some live at Lismore, and I don't know where else.
Do we ever know what happened in 28 days?
Grin, Grin spoon.
Greenspoon. I can't.
One word.
Yeah, one word.
Right, got it. Greenspoon. This is my afternoon sorted. So there are some things I wouldn't mind asking, just to help me at the moment. I'm working on a Strat, and I want it to look cool, like really like it's about the looks for this Strat. So I put out on YouTube on my community tab some questions about colours, but what I haven't thought about, and I'm trying to get my head around, is what do you all like about fret markers? Like, I don't want to go with just plain circle fret markers. I don't think I want something interesting. But I think I've done some with stars on, and that looks a bit naff. So I'm wondering, or it doesn't look naff. It looked right for that guitar, but I don't think it'd be for this. I'm wondering, like, of the traditional sort of fret markers, what everyone likes, like blocks, the sharp tooth, the kind of standard dots. Has anyone got a preference or a favourite that they like?
I like split diamonds, but they're a pain in the ass to do.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know what's on the Trini Lopez or the Dave Grohl guitar? They're like diamonds, but the tips sort of like they're half and half, and then the tips, the bottom tip and the top tip sort of line up on the center line. I've done that once, I think, but I only did it on 12th fret, but it was a pain in the ass to do.
The other ones I've made, actually all of mine have just had either the circles, the dots, the mother of pearl or abalone, or tubing. So I've done the tubing filled with glow in the dark resin or glow in the dark powder and resin. That was good, you know, for a glow in the dark effect. Or the other one was the tubing, but that was on the Middle Earth guitar build that it had the sort of stripy ebony, but I used. You make a drill bit out of the actual tubing yourself, so it actually just cuts out the circle. So then you see the grain pattern of the wood. So it's not like, you know, you drill out the grain pattern. So that sort of took a little bit of time. But yeah, if you've got a nice fretboard and you don't want to interrupt the grain lines going through it, then the inlay is just the circle, or the fret mark is just the circle, and the middle bit the actual wood, rather than filling it with something else after the fact.
Yeah, you can use a plug cutter too.
Yeah,
but probably sometimes they break off.
Yeah, when I tested it, I'd seen someone else do it, and I thought that looks like it wouldn't work. And so I used the same tubing. I even put a bit of dowel in the middle, so when I put it in the drill press, it wouldn't squish it up. And I think I cut like four teeth in it and just worked out. I had to work out make sure that I knew which way the drill was going to spin to cut them in the right way. And I think I just used a little Dremel tool, and they're pretty rough cut. And I kind of did it to see if it would work on an off cut. And it actually cut the ebony really clean, and I was super surprised. And then sort of cleaned up the teeth a little bit better. But yeah, it looks amazing. It was much better than I anticipated. Actually, it was one of those things. It was like, hey, I'll try it to see if it works, but I'm pretty sure it'll fail, and I'll go to plan B. But I really surprised myself how effective it worked. But it's the right fretboard is suitable for that. If you want to see the grain line sort of going through.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a very clever little trick to do that.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I think it was someone else in one of the other Great Guitar Build-Off competitions. The harder thing about there is then drilling the hole, because obviously if you've got a center point bit, you can measure the center of the fret. But when you've got your drill bit circular and you're trying to position that, you don't actually have that center point. So there was a few nervous, lining it up, and you can't really look down the tube to see if it's lined up. So I can't remember how I did it, but that was the scary bit, actually, just making sure that I was drilling it right in the center of the fret, because it would be easy to get it off a bit.
I've got some hollow beads from like a craft sort of store on eBay, and white little rings or black little rings. So it's sort of similar to that. But I just filled it with dust. And on the Gerg's Cup one, I've got like letters for like little bracelets and necklaces.
Nice.
Yeah, you can just put anything in there and then fill it in with resin.
I've just started following on Instagram a page that does I can't remember what they're called. Are they called spacers? The things you put in your ears when you have the loops.
And the tunnels.
Tunnels, yeah. So they make tunnels, but with really intricate and interesting designs on. I was thinking I might get a load of those. And of course, it depends how big they are, and try them in a fret as well.
What I was going to say, Daniel, was I think for yourself is that because a lot of the guitars you build, they're extremely unique. But on the same hand, there's no real trademark that's like yours. And I'd almost say that, a fret marker that was yours, that, anyone could look at that guitar and instantly recognize it by those fret markers. just the same way that we can, recognize, a Les Paul from theirs.
That's a brilliant idea. Like Scott has his 12th fret marker, which is his bone. Maybe that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. I designed a new headstock shape that I was going to use and everything, but I haven't. I don't know why.
On the same hand, you'd also probably want to make it like something simple and easy to replicate.
Yeah.
Two of my guitars don't have any fret markers at all, store-bought ones, and I don't miss them. I use the side markers. I don't really look at the top fret markers when I'm playing, and I always thought that if you had no fret markers to show off a cool piece of wood, but then something at the 12th fret as a signature, I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Now, I'm a big fan of fretboards with no fret markers. I think they look really cool. Yeah.
I just found the I don't know if I'll see it on the camera. This is the bit that I made to chop it. So you can see there. Yeah, so they're the 4 teeth just ground into the end. So they're pretty rough and ready. That really cut way cleaner than I thought it would.
That's really good.
Yeah, and they just filled the end, so when I clamp it into the drill press, it doesn't squash and compress.
It goes blunt. You could always just cut it and redo it.
That's right. Yep, I've got a couple inches there. I'll just chop it off and do another one.
I've been putting my I've got a bunch of picks with my logo on it. I've been putting them in the 12th fret too, and just put epoxy over the top of it.
That's a very cool idea.
Yeah, I got it off Brett Luthier. He didn't have a logo for his GGBO guitar, but he had picks, so he cut a pick in a circle and stuck it on the headstock. Oh yeah, I might do that. And Ty's got his like little medallions and.
Yeah, I like those medallions, and he hides them inside as well.
Yeah, his idea of putting them in different places is great. If you peek inside the F hole and they're there. Yeah. I got those medallions done as well. I got my little ones done off a guy on Etsy. I don't know if they'll come out.
Oh, hold on. Let me just make you bigger.
There we go.
There it is.
You don't want him bigger.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Etsy.
So they were. There's a guy called Von something. I need to find his name and I'll share it. But he's on Etsy and he sells them. And my webcam is now out of focus. That's great. So he makes them and sells them, but he does them in small batches of like 10, and you can get ones with black backgrounds or the chrome, whichever you prefer, and they work really, really well. And he does them in about 5 days and sends them out.
Oh, amazing. That's a really good idea. So you've inspired me for 12 fret marker designs. I'll see. We've got Simon in the chat. There's some new people in the chat, so maybe doing it at a different time does work to make it more accessible to other people. Simon says he's only done simple dots, but also thinking about a more unique 12 fret marker. One thing I have been doing for customers when they've had specific designs is make the 12th fret marker so it goes over the 12th, centered on the 12th fret, but goes over the frets next to it. So often it's a larger circle. And that's normally a symbol related to whatever the design is. So someone asked me to do a Supernatural, the TV show themed one, and it had a logo from, I don't really know Supernatural well enough, but one of the symbols was the big 12th fret, went over a few frets. And I did the same with a Viking one. We had some sort of Viking related symbol. Hey, if anyone is in the chat that doesn't normally watch because of the time, but this is more convenient, can you just let us know that is the fact in the chat, because that'd be really helpful to know that this is working out in that way.
Back in the day, hole saws, how they come in all different sizes. I used that for a 12 fret marker and ended up just filling in with putty. This was back in the day when I, built a lot more crap than decent stuff. And you go the drill bit, then you got this, the 20 mil one, and then 25, and then 30, and then you can cover up like the 10th and the 11th and the 13th fret with, like, it'd be better out of wood than putty though, but that's all I had at the time.
I follow a couple of woodworking Instagram pages or TikTok pages, can't remember which one, and one of them is someone that he always looks at a clip of someone else doing something. It's like, oh, you must be kidding me, and then he goes and tries it out. And one of them is someone took those drill cutters, those circular drill cutters, and you can put two together on the same drill bit, so it's cut.
Yeah.
So it will cut, and it basically will cut the sort of ring out for you, if that makes sense.
Is that the dude that goes, what? No way.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
It's very funny. I've got these actually. So these are screw heads, and sometimes these bolts that I've just cut off and embedded in resin. So I drill a little hole,
That's cool.
drop it in, and embed it.
That's pretty cool.
I really like that.
Doing that for a while, but that depends on the guitar design.
Certainly the circular shape is, and I think that's why those, the medallions are really cool. And that's something that I've thought about, wanting to find someone to do them, because obviously a circular shape is easy to cut out with the right size drill bit. And then that just opens the options for what you can sort of put in there and then fill with resin. So that's,
You can find a lot of stuff.
Whereas any other shape you're hand inlaying it yourself, or you need a CNC or a laser or something like that. So that's when I kind of think of those kind of things, I'm thinking circular shapes where I've got a drill bit it'll cut the space out nice and easy for me.
Well, I bought a mosaic pin, and I think mosaic pins are designed for knife makers. But essentially, it's a metal tube with a shape that goes in it, a bit like Brighton rock stick or a stick of rock. Does that mean anything to you? Or is that a British thing? Yeah.
It's a British thing, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's a circular tube, and it's got a star that runs along the inside. But there's some companies that make really intricate designs. And after your little clip on Luthier's lunch break last month, Arran, I can cut it really easily, and I'm going to drop them in some. I think I was just for this one, I'm literally painting the fretboard, and I was thinking of painting a design on the fretboard because it was I'm doing a series of guitars where I've got so many leftover bits or old guitars that just needed a bit of restoration, and I'm doing paint jobs on them and then trying to sell them on. And all of them will be great at the end, but at some point there's something that's like, one of them just needed a whole new fret job. It was just totally ruined. And some of them, like this particular neck I'm thinking of, I've had for a long time, and it's a all parts licensed Fender Yngwie Malmsteen scalloped fretboard.
Oh,
it's just been hanging around for ages, so I want to make it look cool. And it's already got the fret dots in it, and I don't want to risk drilling them out because it's scalloped. It's right near the truss rod. So what I want to do is just, when I'm painting it, paint a design on it, because I've painted fretboards quite a lot. Once you finish them, it's just like having a maple fretboard, really, that's been finished with a top coat.
You can do a multi-laminate one where you just sand the radius in, and then like the edges drop down like plywood or whatever. I reckon that'd look kind of cool.
I'm just now thinking of one of your fretboards, one of your necks, not your fretboards, Corey, or maybe your fretboards as well, and then having the scallop in that to reveal the weird patterns that sort of come out when you're carving your multi-laminate necks together.
I was watching Paul from Mile House Studios. Do you guys watch him or not?
No.
He's a British fellow.
You've been recommending him as a guest.
Yeah. I've been tagging you in his post to try to get him on. He's doing a neck, and he's having the fretboard as like, it's basically a one-piece neck. So I was thinking, if I did one of those crazy necks and then routed the truss rod in from the back and then put a skunk stripe in and then radius the top, that would look kind of cool too. Like him. I don't know how else to explain it. But he routed in from the back, like he's basically got an all maple neck. So he's putting the radius on the neck link and then cutting the frets on top of that rather than gluing a fretboard on. So that's another plan. So
Ray, last time you were on, so for people that don't know, in the video description for this, there's a link to the playlist of all the episodes that we've had of the Guitar Builders Collective chat before. And it also shows the forthcoming ones, although I can only schedule the forthcoming ones, I think, for about 6 weeks in advance. And we've already got some people booked a bit further than that because the dates work for them. But you can find Ray's when Ray was on a few months ago. But Ray, we were talking about all your 3D printed guitars, but I realized we didn't talk about the other 3D printed guitar related things that you make, like we're talking about jigs off air and things like that. So I wondered if we could get on to talking about that a little bit now.
By all means.
Because I've seen a lot of people with jigs that are 3D printed, some of which are complicated, but some are just so simple. And it does make me think, if I had a 3D printer, I might not even use it for the actual guitars, but there's so much I could make with the 3D printer, even to just the storage things that people put their tools in that would justify buying it almost.
Oh, the Gridfinity things. Yeah, look, it's one of the benefits of 3D printing is if you can imagine it, draw it somehow, then there's going to be a way that you can print it. Look, you can go out and you can pick up a humbucker route template for not a lot of money. On the same hand, you can also send the router through the template and have to go buy another one. Whereas, for myself, I just print it again. The other thing that it allows you to do is if you were to want to replicate a process, let's say you're going to build, 3 or 4 of the same guitars, and you got your neck pocket, your pickup spacing is all set out, you know where that's all going to go. Instead of trying to mark it out and measure it each and every single time, you can basically print the single template and lay that down onto the piece of wood and just go for it. As I mentioned before we got onto the stream, I actually printed out an entire Les Paul template. So zapped out that guy today.
Oh, cool.
And it's got the body. It's got the body shape. It's got the modern chambering in there. It's got the pickup locations. Everything is there. It's just get that onto the piece of wood once. And theoretically, everything should be there.
And with something like that, did you design it, or are there lots of people selling them and free versions of things you can get as well?
Look, there's a little bit of everything out there. So this is one that I made up. I found a picture of a Les Paul before the veneer went on, and essentially I traced around it in CAD and converted it over and made my own. So it might be off by a few millimeters to an actual Les Paul, but on the same hand, it is ready to go. You can buy the CAD files for these guitars. In fact, a lot of my guitars are built from pre-existing CAD files, or I've found a picture of a guitar and it's got a nice enough straight on angle that I can trace out the body and then make it work from there.
Yeah, I used 3D printing when I was building my Telecaster as well. I needed to make a form to, bend my veneer from my headstock into place. So I have a laminated neck, and I didn't want the lamination showing on the headstock. So I got a piece of 0.7mm rosewood, soaked it in some hot water, and then I 3D printed this guy, which is just a 2-piece clamp, and put it in, clamped it all down, left it for a week, came back, and it fit perfectly. I made some router templates for pickups as well. Even a little organizer for all my frets with numbers next to them. So when I was cutting frets from 1 to 22, I could pop them in. There's some really good stuff on Thingiverse, which is one of the free repositories. If you just go there and type in luthier, there's about 8 or 9 pages of results for kind of tools, really, more than anything else. So there's things like there's the block you can print for holding a Floyd Rose in place while you're doing intonation. There's some pickup templates. There are Floyd Rose templates you can just download and use for routing out the Floyd Rose trim pockets. So there's some really good stuff. And
you didn't have
paid stuff out there is fantastic. Did you? I didn't find which, sorry?
You didn't happen to find a template for a Shayla tremolo, did you?
No, not yet. Still looking for that one as well.
Me too.
There's a market to make one.
Exactly. Hopefully some enterprising guy will do it soon. But this little guy just saved my bacon because I didn't know how to shape the veneer and hold it in place and clamp it or anything, and it worked out great. I was just thrilled with how easy it worked.
I think it's the precision with making those as well. Like I know when I, not that particular thing that makes something similar, that I'm using bits of wood that I'm kind of rough cutting and then sanding to get to shape and checking and triple checking it. And you get close and it does the job what you want it, but it's not exactly precise. So to have something that could be 3D printed reasonably quickly, obviously for CNC would do the same thing. But things like that when I'm going through my spare offcuts bin to find some suitable bits of wood to cut and shape to roughly get something that I want, I can really see the appeal of getting on the computer and then printing something 3D.
Well, that's it. I mean, like when you draw it up on the computer, you are 100% accurate. Millimeter. So provided you took your measurements okay, then what you draw is exactly what is going to come out of the printer. And most 3D printers have an accuracy of it's probably 100 microns, actually probably less. They're pretty bloody tight tolerances. Like you've probably seen on the show, a lot of the guitar bodies of mine are built as a jigsaw puzzle, quite literally a jigsaw puzzle shape. And I don't allow any tolerance between parts. There's no movement there. And when I put them together, I'm basically hitting them with a mallet to get them locked in. That's how tight the tolerances are on it. If you do try to do that with a bandsaw or something, then you're gonna struggle. One of the other things that Sorry,
I see Simon has a question in the chat about the cost of 3D printing.
Look, so I can really only talk in like Australian dollars. A roll of filament is the cheap stuff's probably sitting around about the $20 mark, give or take $1 or $2. For the same type of polymer in a higher quality, it can go up to like $50, $60 for a kilo. And then there are some other polymers that, look, at work, we have some called PEEK, P-E-E-K, polyether ketone, I think. Anyway, that stuff's about $700 for half a kilo.
Right. So, but for example, the Les Paul template you printed out, if you're buying it in the kilo or whatever, the reel, how much is that using up? Is that
how much does this guy cost?
Or not necessarily how much it costs, but with a reel, how many are we talking about? Being able to make a couple of those, or we're talking about making hundreds of them?
You're about 10.
10, right? So that's pretty cheap, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It really is. There's about 100 grams in this. Might be a little bit more, but ultimately, it's not a great deal. Most of the guitars you see here, the bodies, it's probably about $40 to $50 in filament for them, for each one. And it's it doesn't have to be that expensive. You can go absolutely nuts and print in $700 half kilo filament. That requires a specialized printer to be able to use that as well. But there's absolutely no need. The typical desktop 3D printer that you can buy for, there's some out there that are under $200, and they won't print these guys, but they will print. So that guy there will, can easily be done on a very cheap printer, because it's just individual components, and then they're all just glued right together. Whereas things like that one with the tramp stamp on the base, so that does take a more specialized printer. However, that one is also 2,000 AU to be able to print that, and on top of that, it would do a lot more than just print a guitar as well.
Surely the $600 or $700 one would be a better quality tone plastic, wouldn't it, and make it sound better?
Somebody was going to say it.
I've got two things to show you in a moment about that.
Here comes the tone filament argument.
Get Paul Reed to chip in on the tone plastic argument, see what he thinks about it.
Quick question. If in the future, I think what's driving me to want to get the 3D printer is essentially for tools and jigs, basically. But I'm not really sure where I'd put it. I guess I could put it in here if I could make a bit more space. But my workshop is the ideal space to put it in, but it's quite dusty in there. They're obviously in enclosures. Is that quite sealed up? If it was in a room that was quite dusty, would that affect the print, or would I just need to be constantly cleaning it or putting it inside a secondary cupboard to secure it?
I would go inside a secondary cupboard. Like it won't bother it too much. But what will happen is that you'll find that you have there's metal rods in there that are covered in grease. You've got sawdust flying around. They're going to get trapped in that grease, and that's then going to start affecting the dimensional accuracy. They will start binding up the movement of the carriage. So it's not. Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
On the same hand, depending upon the filaments that you're using, you don't necessarily want it in your office either. So a lot of the stuff I use is what's called PLA material. It's made from corn oil, essentially, and it's pretty safe. It's pretty safe. It pumps out, and it doesn't really. Actually, I don't think it triggers a VOC meter at all. So essentially, you can print with it in the same room, and it's not a concern. However, I also use a lot of other filaments such as ABS, ASA, nylon, polycarbonate, and I mean, if you've ever smelt polycarbonate that's melting, it's not good for you. So in that instance, you don't necessarily want that printer in your office with you. Now, yes, mine is. However, it also runs HEPA filtered before pumping anything out. So they tell me that there's no VOCs coming out of it, and I choose to believe that.
So here's another question, which is a bit random. So I've got a shed that is my spray booth, and when I spray in it, throughout the summer it's fine. In the winter, I have to heat it to get it up to a decent temperature and get it all fine. And would if for example a printer was in that space, it would be sealed off when I'm spraying, and then I'll use it when I'm not spraying. Would the temperature affect the print? Like, could I do it out there in the winter, or do I need to warm the space up like I would to room temperature?
You can do it out there in the middle of winter if the printer is an enclosed printer, like that one. And at that point, I'd simply suggest, you know, and I do this with a lot of our customers that I deal with who are trying to print engineering filaments on a lower end printer, and that is the heat, because you have the heat bed that you print on, and will run anywhere between 50 to 100 degrees Celsius. So I'll often tell them to essentially turn it on for half an hour before you start printing and let it heat that chamber up, so the ambient air is already warm. You can certainly print in colder temperatures, but you have to be mindful of what filaments you're using. So PLA is really, really forgiving. It prints extremely easy. It prints at achievable, you know, temperatures. And the best part about it is when it cools, the shrink percentage is minimal,
Right.
very minimal. Whereas if I print a large part, say I print a 100 millimeter square or cube block out of ABS, it'll be 100 mil in there. But once I take it out, give it 20 minutes, it'll be about 98 millimeters. Because it'll just
That's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
I am. I just don't have I can't justify the cost at the moment for buying things. I really want a little CNC as well. I need to sell more guitars. Hence the what I'm trying to do at the moment of the upcycling guitars and painting them and trying to sell them on, because that way I can sell it. We were talking off air about prices. I feel like they can sell at a more affordable price than if I was to make a guitar, because in this country anyway, what I've noticed is for most boutique guitar builders, it's very hard to sell much above $2.5 grand. And if you think about the time and effort everyone's putting into it, it's not really viable. So it's trying to find ways to balance that, or just find very rich clients who don't mind paying the worth of the guitar, maybe.
You know, look, I've looked at some of your. Actually, I looked at a lot of your guitars, and I sort of get right up close. I'm just like, how the hell have you done that? And I'd almost ask the question of, how can you not justify the cost of it with what you're doing?
Oh, that's kind to say. Yeah, I tried having them in some art galleries recently as well, thinking that might be a different audience, but we'll see. It's really hard. Like when I started out, I priced everything much higher and I sold very infrequently, but selling one at a much higher price might have been better than selling three at a lower price. But selling them at a lower price meant I was having income a bit more regularly, and also it meant that it seemed to mean that I had a turnover of guitars going out to justify more being built.
Yeah,
I'm trying different ways at the moment. I've mentioned the Kickstarter, the crowdfunder that I'll be doing soon as well. Pricing is
cash flow is the tricky part for anything out there. You know, it's, you know, I'm surrounded by 20 odd guitars here that I've built, custom designed for other people to play, and they're sitting here. And you know, it'll be another 12 months, and there's probably going to be another 20 sitting here. It's just the nature of the beast, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Daisy Tempest did a video on. She released it this week, just on, you know, if you're a luthier, you know, what to do to make sure you're successful. And one of the topics was price, and her philosophy was, you know, kind of don't underprice yourself. Now it's easy for her to say because she flings out high-end acoustic guitars that are probably no less than 10,000 euros, I would imagine, you know, having looked at some of her work. But it's kind of that point where once you start reducing the price, it's very hard to bring it back up again, I think. And that goes with anything, if you're trying to sell something on Facebook Marketplace, the second somebody throws in a bid and starts knocking the price down, the next person knocks it down a bit more, and the next person knocks it down a bit more. It's very, but then you have to balance it as well, Daniel, as you said, with regular cash flow as well. So it's hard to identify where that balance actually is a happy balance.
Yeah, one of the things that I see a lot of it happening in 3D printing in particular is that, someone buys a 3D printer and then they put up a marketplace ad, 3D printing services, and they're, basically a 3D printing bureau. You send them the file, they'll print your part, send it out to you. And they're doing it for absolutely ridiculous prices. That what has happened is they have undervalued the entire industry. And I keep going on continuously, no matter what industry you're in, do not undervalue yourself, what you are worth. I see some of the prices that you guys have put on your guitars, and I'm thinking you guys are absolutely nuts if you only think it's worth that much.
It's really hard, because I've seen carpenters talk about this. I saw a really great video by a guy called the Gosford Handyman, who I follow on YouTube, who is a carpenter that does how-tos and tool review type things, but he was doing how you value your work and how you charge to run a business. And he said, like, he's had a customer come in and said, I want you to make me I think it was a shelving unit, and how much would it cost? And he was just comparing it to buying one at IKEA. Now, the wood he was using is better than the IKEA one, but he was saying once you get to certain things that are just mass produced, the finish that you get in a factory is potentially going to be flawless compared to when you're making just a one-off at home. It's not going to be quite the same. The amount of time it takes him to make some of these very basic units, it's almost worth just buying the IKEA one. And then he can make the more complicated things or the more unique things. So if you're just getting him to basically copy an IKEA table and then you're surprised that the price is 10 times as much, you shouldn't be. But when you can see what he's made has got the handiwork in it, then it seems like you can justify the price. I don't know if I explained that very well. When you're making something that's just looks like something you can buy off the shelf, it's hard to say it's worth more than the one you buy off the shelf. When you make something where you can see it's definitely different or has that handmade to it. So it's hard to compete against mass-produced guitars sometimes if you're just making a butterscotch telly.
Well, I know
if you go and look at the quality of what's in the store, though. Like I visited, we don't have many music stores here now due to the decimation of Thomann taking them all on and shutting them down. But the few that we do have left are really just stocking bread and butter things that they think will sell. And that is, of course, going to be Fender and Gibson and one or two small low-cost brands as well. But I picked up a Telecaster, a thin line Telecaster in the shop recently. One of the ones with the F-hole on it. And I was really, really surprised by the poor build quality. So little things like where the F-hole is cut, they've made no attempt to smooth the end grain in the hole there. It's all rough. And when I say rough, I mean incredibly rough. It looked like somebody took a blunt hacksaw and did it and then sprayed paint finish over it. So I'm not necessarily sure that the quality of the mainstream manufacturers, the analogy I think works really well when you're talking about more of the high-end guys. But I think that the guys that people associate with buying electric guitars, the Fenders and the Gibsons, I don't think that quality is there.
You're not the first person to say that about Fenders they've picked up recently.
I think on the same hand, it's a lot of it's one of those things that, I mean, people like us will go into a store and look at a guitar and we will pick all of those faults. We will see all of those things. And the biggest reason that we see them is because we have to deal with them ourselves in our own guitars. Okay, maybe me, not so much, but you guys for sure. Whereas the average guitar player off the street would probably never spot that. And that's why they do it, because they can get away with it. And the trick that then becomes of how do we, as guitar builders, how do we show that our butterscotch telly, for instance, is a far superior build quality to Fenders.
But I think it's even happening in industry now where sorry, Ray. I think it's even happening now where the stores themselves, even the big box stores, the Thomans of this world, are acknowledging how poor the quality is by saying, buy your guitar, and for another $100 we can run it through a flat machine so it can fix all the problems that's coming from the factory.
Yeah, I think people don't understand the cost of the materials as well. We've sort of talked about the quality of the timber guitars rather than a painted one. And I know in Australia, a few of the places that sell wood specifically for guitar builders, and Corey and I have both bought amazing bits of wood through them, and they make the guitar look awesome. But if you do that for the top and the body and a nice fretboard and neck, like we're paying here probably $500 or $600 just for the wood for the guitar before you lay a bit of sandpaper or saw to it, and that isn't even thinking about the hardware and things that go on top of it. And for $500 or $600 in Australia, you can get any number of guitars from a guitar store that are ready to go. So that's kind of the market, or the people who would be buying these. People are going to realise that just the materials themselves are going to be that much. And I've similar thing. I've got a few friends who are knife makers, that either professional or hobbyist knife makers, and the knives that they make sort of kitchen, good kitchen knives. They're like $700-800 minimum for one knife, and often they'll get customers saying, "Oh, I'd love you to make me a knife," and they're just, the customers are horrified when they say, "Oh, look, that'll be $800 minimum for one knife." But as soon as they start breaking down that they've got the raw metal that they're forging these knives out of, and all of the work, and often one in particular said, "Oh, look, when you explain the breakdown of that to a potential customer, they're like, oh yeah, that actually does make sense why it's that price."
Yeah, just the tops alone are like the tops I get are like about $200 just for a 5mm top, and it's
exactly. And then you turn around, and if you want to throw a pair of Damasio or Seymour Duncan pickups at it, there's another $400 or $500 gone.
Yep.
Boy, do I hear you on that. Yeah, I just bought this baby for my one, which is a Fishman Fluent setup for the Telecaster. Yeah, and it's kind of one of those decisions where I went, right, I'm going to go all in. And I'm listening to Arran and Corey here as well, and I kind of spent that amount of money on wood as well. So I joke with my partner that this is probably the world's most expensive Telecaster in production, and every guitar from here will probably get a little bit cheaper, But yeah, I mean, really, woods. I'm in the whole 300 quid for wood in the guitar because I can't get any wood locally. I have to bring it all in from European suppliers. Electronics, minimum really when you talk about it, you're probably going to be spending €200 on electronics. So you're €500 before you put a set of tuners and a bridge. And then your time, and the time rule for me is something that's actually, it's really hard to quantify, but I was self-employed for a couple of years a long time ago as a spray painter, and when I started my business, the local council had a set up your own business day where they went through the basics of accounting and how to price your work, and they said that if you take the price you're charging for your finished product and you divide it by the number of hours you put into it, and you come out with less money than you would make in McDonald's on an hour, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, that is how.
But that's how it works, right?
Work works. Yeah. So I've only ever been self-employed, really, and when I have been employed, it's been on short contracts of not permanent, not full-time work, to balance the work I do as a self-employed person, because some of the places I work with employ so many self-employed people that they have to have you on their books for tax reasons. So anyway, so it's always been self-employed, and I've just found the amount of work I've always done has been way more than it looks. So some of the jobs I do, like I'm doing a 2-hour job, and sometimes they're paying £500 for 2 hours. You think that's brilliant, but then it's actually 3 weeks of work, and the actual job's just 2 hours. It's the 3 weeks of meeting people, planning things, buying stuff, designing stuff, advertising it, evaluating it afterwards. Anyway,
I know a few of us in chats have talked about that for like how many hours it takes to build the different guitars that we've built, and some people have recorded the time. And that's one thing I've got. Probably about a year ago, I started making a Strat, and I've been recording like how, to the nearest half hour or whatever, how long it's sort of taking me, and that's kind of a project that's in the background. But I'm really curious to see when I get that finished at whatever stage in the future, what the hourly time was, because since it is just a straight Strat, it's processes that I've done before, so that there shouldn't be any stages that I get up to that are going to take like half a day of problem solving to overcome something and add on time. So it's kind of a build that I know I can. I know all the steps should go pretty smoothly. So I'm really curious to see how many hours that takes if I build something that I don't have to stop and make templates or stop to work out a solution to overcome something that a design feature or something.
I think that's one of the benefits where CNC can come into play for you guys. It's because you have a repeatable process that's, at the end of the day, is a guitar made by CNC and one that you guys have built by hand. Is there really a great deal of difference? To you as the builder, yeah, there is. There's the heart, the soul, and all that goes into it. But at the end of the day, once it leaves your hands and goes into the customer's hands, is there a difference?
I think you have to get to a tipping point, though, where you have enough customers to offset the costs of buying the CNC and putting in the extraction for the CNC and the time for upskilling with the CNC. And I don't know about the guys here. I mean, guitar building will always be a hobby for me in particular. And if I sell a few, fantastic. But and at some point, because I'm a complete and utter absolute idiot, I will buy a CNC and put it in the garage and marvel at it and go, isn't that great? But I'll never make any money back on it. I think that's why most guys who are building guitars as hobbies will stick with rotor templates, because realistically with the rotor template, you can probably bang out a guitar fairly quickly versus a CNC, I think, anyway. I used to be, I keep talking about old careers now, and you're going to think I'm making all this stuff up, and I'm not. But about 20 years ago, I used to be a technician repairing plotters and CNCs as well, back when they were very simple machines. And so I'd watch CNCs going around and doing their things. And I think, honestly, having made the Telecaster body back there, I could probably do it just as fast with a rotor template as a CNC could do it.
Okay, so this is actually a really good point that you're making, Owen. So one of the reasons, before I got into 3D printing for a job, it was a hobby for me. Now, in my previous life, I used to do high-end car audio installations and things like that. And when I say high-end, we're talking Rolls, Maybachs, Bentleys, Lambos, Ferraris. That was the sort of caliber of car that I was working on. And when I'm doing that, there's a lot of stuff that is all custom made out of MDF, and I spend hours making just a simple speaker spacer that no one's ever going to see. It's going to go behind a door card, put the speaker on there, and you're done. And I would spend literally hours. However, when I brought 3D printing into it, I would spend a little bit of time, maybe half hour to an hour, doing the design. I would send that to the printer, and you can do this with the CNC as well. It's like, yes, you can route out the body of a Telecaster in about the same time frame as it takes a CNC to do it. However, the difference being is while the CNC is routing out the body, you're off doing something else. It's running autonomously by itself, and that's where it can come into a play. And on top of that, once you're talking about setting up the tooling paths and setting up the model and all of that, you're absolutely right. That's painful doing all that stuff. However, you only have to do it once. And once you've done it that once for that particular model, it's then a repeatable process that you select your file, load in the piece of wood, clamp it down, send it on its way. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But on the same hand, if you are pumping them out, that's where the benefits come in. And you were sort of saying, you'd never make your money back on the CNC. Well, actually, you could. You actually could because it can pump out a body, while you're off doing something else. There's nothing to say that you couldn't line up, throw in a slab, get a body out. You don't have to make that guitar. You could then turn around and sell that pre-made blank for a couple of $100. It'll sell. It'll definitely sell. And I see them on eBay and Marketplace being sold all the time. It's better than a kit guitar because it's a decent piece of wood. It's not a hunk of pine that's got body fillers slapped on it or anything like that. You could, in a month, you'd have the machine paid off if you really wanted to.
I definitely see a space in the future where, because at the moment I'm trying to work on designs where I make more than one of them. So I can definitely see that. But I think the space guitars that I made recently that I'm about to really try and promote, lots of people said, oh, you need a 3D printer to do these things. And one thing I like about the process I went through making them is the way I made them and the process I made them. And that's all by hand, sculpting things, finding things. And if I designed it on a computer and 3D printed it, I think I'd really enjoy it, but it'd be a different process. And what I want with a 3D printer is to be able to make little bits to augment what I've got. And there's a channel I really like called Cut, Transform, Glue on YouTube, who makes basically like mini mecha robot things and spaceships and stuff like that. And when he started out, it was all kit bashing with bits of things that he found around. And as his channel's become more popular, he's invested in more equipment, and he had a 3D printer that was like, sometimes he'd get some bits that he'd found, leftover bits of everyday items, and then he'd 3D print something to help connect them together. And as the channel's grown bigger and bigger, more and more of his things are designed and 3D printed, and less of it is the found objects that put together. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I can see that's probably the way my working would end up going. But for now, I'm loving that kind of hands-on experimenting. I hope that if I can grow enough to sell more of them to justify buying the 3D printer and doing more of them in that way, that I'll start to embrace loving the 3D printer. But we'll see what happens. I think what will happen.
I think, like, for yourself, Daniel, at the moment, it's like, do I see a benefit to you having a 3D printer? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because you'll be able to, when you want that little bit and you can't find it anywhere, and you can't dissect another Revel model to get the part from, you'll be able to print it, provided you can draw it or CAD design. However, when you say like you're looking at making like a series of guitars, or making multiples of one, that's when the 3D printer can come into its own. It can open up a whole different world for you. The time that it would take to make, let's say five of the same thing, versus how long it would take the printer to do, is exactly that. You only have to do it once.
Yeah.
And then you let it go, and while it's working, while it's doing its thing, you're off doing something else. Yeah. Oftentimes you find me here, I've got a guitar printing, and And while it's printing, I'm sitting here in front of my computer. I'm designing the next one that's going to go on there.
I wonder, because, you know, where I'm living, I'm actually quite lucky that I have a maker space around the corner. Well, it's half an hour away. But I wonder if it's something that luthiers in general should look into, because a lot of these maker spaces will give you access to equipment you couldn't necessarily justify purchasing for hobbyist purposes. So our guys have a huge flatbed laser, they have a CNC, they've a huge wide jointer that'll take a whole body and make it smooth, and thickness sander.
Yeah.
And I think those type of resources will be amazing for luthiers to explore if they have any of them close by. And not necessarily, like, our one is great because you can go through the training and get access to use the machine yourself independently. But they also have open making days where you can go in and somebody who's trained on the machine can just run it through for you on that one time, and you can just drop off a few euros for it. So I wonder if that's a way to find a good balance between leveraging next gen tech for making guitars and speeding up the process and making the process more repeatable and accurate, versus spending 3 or 4 grand on a CNC as a hobbyist as well.
Yeah, I think that's
100%.
something. Yeah, I know the way I do things, that like I don't have a thicknesser or the the sanded thickness thing. So all my thicknessing is done with the homemade router sled, and every time I'm there going backwards and forwards to get something to the right dimension, it's like, oh man, I wish I had something just to run it through. So something like that, you know, if you had a few things that you could just build up and go somewhere and run it through someone else's. But
It'd be cool to batch them out, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, like in the back of my mind, I'd love to get into the CNC machine, and that's something that, you know, I'd like to do in a year or so, which would do all of those kind of things for me, and which is probably one of the reasons why I haven't gone out to buy a thicknesser and other tools, because I'd prefer to put the money towards something like that. But yeah, certainly, those kind of spaces. Just the money saver. If you're doing it as a hobby, you don't want to be spending all that money just to build 1 or 2 guitars over a couple of years as a big sort of outlay at the start.
Yeah,
it's funny you should say thicknesser. I have a thicknesser and it's grand, but I found myself envious of your router sled, because I think the router sled is actually probably a better tool for guitar making. The thicknessers are not without their problems. They'll only do up to a certain width, and there's snipe at the start and the end of the run, and sometimes you don't get the cleanest finish out of them even with new blades. So I find myself, every time I see Niels, who by the way, if you haven't seen Niels making guitars, he seems to be making one at an average of about every 4 days at the moment.
Yeah, it's a pretty machine, that car.
But every time he's using his router sled, I love it.
I think he's knocking you off your pedestal, Corey, for getting out the most guitars.
Well, I finished 2 this week.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've finished my Jurg's Cup 2 and commission.
Now you're going to be on Jurg's Cup 24 while we're still on Jurg's Cup 3.
I've got time, so I just...
One of the things I was going to mention about 3D printing was that, we've talked about making guitars, as we see here, and tooling, but there's also making custom and bespoke parts for the guitars that you're talking about. One of the reasons that I actually ended up on here was Brad, as we know. And the reason Brad got in contact with me was because he wanted something that I'd never even considered to be a problem, but that was a pickup mounting ring. He wanted a humbucker mounting ring that was just a little bit different. And if you try to buy something online, it's always the same thing. It's the same rectangular piece of plastic. Maybe it's got a curve in it, maybe it's got an angle on it, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. And on top of that, Brad wanted it to be designed for open humbuckers instead of having the metal cap on it, which meant that the corners aren't radiused correctly. So that was the reason he reached out to me, and it didn't take very long to actually bring up a design that was basically what he was after for his. So I mean that's one of them.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's not something you can jump onto eBay or Amazon and buy.
Yep.
That's only coming, you know, from a 3D printer. We tried it in several different materials. So that one there, you probably can't really see the difference. But most things that are 3D printed have like a little layer line through them. However, this particular one is made from it's printed in what we call an SLS machine, which essentially it doesn't use a spool of filament or anything like that. It actually uses nylon powder. And basically it lays a very thin 50 micron film of nylon powder down on a print bed. And then a big 30-watt laser comes along and burns it into the exact pattern that we want. It's things like that, or where's that one?
I think all of those things like that as well help add to a uniqueness of a guitar.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Your own custom card, your own scratch plate. You can create that into any shape, and if you want, you can build the pickup rings actually straight into it and make it all one piece if you wanted to. So it's all contoured.
What a clever
It's
idea.
not two pieces together. Some of the other things that I've been doing with it is that base there was originally designed to have a one of the Fender badass bridges, and they're like $250, I think. No, they're less than that. However, before I could get it, I needed to make sure that it was going to work for me. So I found the dimensions online for one, and I 3D printed my own bridge. And no, I didn't use it, but I knew that it was a true and accurate model of it. So I was then able to further just visualize the guitar through the build process by having this piece.
Well, I believe that's original 3D printing when it first was really pushed was by the Formula One designers and engineers, and they were using rapid prototyping, 3D printing, so they could send files across the world to each other to model things up just to check it all fitted and worked together before doing the final things. And they really drove the technology like that. And it was for exactly what you're doing, otherwise it would take such a long period to send things backwards and forwards and make changes.
Yeah, 100%. So the company I work for, it is a 3D printing company. And one of the things that we, do is we have a lot of startups and a lot of designers coming to us. They've got a product, they've got an idea, and they need to get it into real life. And if it's going to be a plastic product, then they need to pay for like injection molding, and that is not cheap. And you need to be able to basically, before you can get it injection molded, you've got to make sure that it's going to work. So they'll send us their model, their file. We will 3D print it, and they can then look, feel, touch. It also means that when they go to get investors and things like that going for them, they've got a physical product that they can hand to their investor, and say, this is why you need to invest in us. So rapid prototyping, small batch manufacturing as well is a big thing. It's just there's a lot of uses. I've even got one customer who he makes bells. We're talking like big church bells, and we have a printer that is big enough to print a church bell. So he will design it and then send us the file. I'll print that, which often takes about 5 to 6 weeks. of this printer going around and around, just printing a bell. And during those 5 to 6 weeks, that print can fail at any point in time. During the night, during the day, I don't sleep a lot when I'm doing those bells. So I'm constantly thinking this printer's going to just fail. But he comes along, he collects that that plastic bell from us, takes it to his foundry, and casts it in sand, and then 5 to 6 weeks worth of work that I've just done, he sets it on fire and burns it out.
All right. Oh, that's amazing. I had not thought about that as part of the process. So in my former life as an artist, I used to work for an artist who made work in bronze, and we used to make the initial ones in wax that would then be burnt away. But to think you could 3D print like that, that's such a clever idea. I hadn't thought about it.
These things stand up to a meter tall, so printing something like that or making something like that in wax, I could imagine could become a bit of an issue in it being able to support its own weight, sort of thing. Would that be fair to say, or?
Wax would get heavy.
Make it in wax? I think you'd make it in segments.
Okay.
But then you'd have all the and then you'd have to. So you'd make it in segments, and each would have its own case, and then you can case it together as one, I think. But then you'd have all your lines that once you've made it in the metal, you'd have to clean up, which you won't have with your 3D print.
Look, there is still quite a bit of post-processing work to be done with that. Although I believe he does it once the bell has been cast from him.
Right. Okay. Oh, so it would be similar.
It'll be a bit of a layer line, but he needs to polish and grind the bell anyway. So instead of trying to clean up the model, he just cleans up the end result.
Yeah.
And he does that. And then, as you're talking about the Formula One, here in Australia, we have the V8 supercar races. We do. Actually, hang on, am I under an NDA for that one?
Yes. Tell us more. No one can watch it. It's just going live on YouTube. It's right.
So things like the Tickford Ford racing cars, we do all of their aero kits. They're all 3D printed. They didn't have a great year last year. They came to us 6 times to have the kit reprinted. They kept bending the car.
Wow.
Wow.
But there's a lot of uses for it. And the thing that I personally found when I started getting into 3D printing was that there was a couple of things that I thought, oh, this would be handy if I 3D printed. But then as I 3D printed one thing, it's just like I saw just, so many things all around me that could be 3D printed. And they provided a one-off solution to some of the, things that you didn't even realize were a problem.
Yeah.
And I look back, and one of the most useful, I'd probably say one of the most useful things that I've ever 3D printed was probably about 5 cents worth of filament, and saved me probably $500-600. And that was the bottom shelf of the fridge on the actual the little plastic nub that they actually used to hook into had torn away, and basically I had to replace the entire skin of the fridge door, which couldn't be purchased, so I had to buy an entire new door for the fridge, or I 3D printed this little plastic piece that took about 10 minutes to print, 30 cents worth of plastic, a dob of super glue, I stuck it on, and it went for another 3 years.
We definitely live in a world where there's not enough people that just mend things anymore. I know there's people out there that are driving that sort of return to being able to mend things, and to encourage technology producers to make things that you can take apart and fix. Hey, look,
Yeah.
I mentioned that I can't line up all of the future episodes we've got yet, guests we've got lined up yet, because it's going to go too far in the future for the system that we've got to allow us to schedule them. But Corey was in touch with Daniel from Guns and Guitars, and we've got him coming in July, which should be great fun. And I've contacted a number of other people that were suggested in previous chats. So Gabrielle Retty is coming in August, because that will coincide with when she's on her break from teaching. But next week we've got Sean from Arran Lutherie that everyone was suggesting we contacted on. So
That's great.
it'd be great to have him along. We're back at our normal time next week with him, though. I'm just going to chase him soon to get some images for the thumbnail. But yeah, it should be good. I'm very intrigued to talk to him about his journey through moving to work for Crimson as well. Should be fun.
Yeah,
And then there's Andrew.
Oh yes, of course.
Oh.
From a friend of yours who works for Jackson Guitars. We've got that lined up. Again, I don't think have I set up the. I can't remember.
Yeah, no, there's a thumbnail for it.
Yeah. So that's on that's the week after, in fact. And then we've got Brad at the end of next month. Brad from BB Guitars. Still got one gap to fill.
I hope he doesn't have the horror stories as we heard about Gibson when Gibson factory.
Yeah. If you missed that.
That was a little disappointing to hear. With the stuff that he had to say.
Yeah, so that was a few episodes ago. When was that? That was episode 36. So that was 2 months ago, and that was with Jesse, who used to work with Gibson.
Yeah, Jesse.
Yeah, he's been making a heap of bodies on the CNC too.
Yes, it's been
a couple of videos. He's cranking them out.
Yeah, he's been doing like knotty pine and end grain. He posted a walnut one yesterday.
Do you know if his little workshop area grew any bigger? I think he was saying that he was like working in like this tiny little room.
I think he's got a bit bigger setup now that he's moved. I think he said something in the group chat that we're in. But he was commenting on the walnut on that guitar that I posted the other day.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm about to play the end credits, but in it mentions all of these things. So the Facebook group that will have loads of these images in. Jesse posts in there a lot, so do go and check that out. You have to go and do a search for it. But Corey, am I right? It just hit 1,000 members the other day.
Yeah, this week hit 1,000, and
amazing.
Yeah, I during the stream I actually got a payment for the shirt, so I've put that through to the Leukemia Foundation and put a post up on the Instagram page.
Fantastic.
Nice.
It's great.
Before we go, can I show off my Yergs Cup? Or
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
Make you full screen.
do you want the Yergs Cup or the commission first?
Let's save the Yergs Cup. Let's start with the commission.
Righto. That's the one Alan was talking about before.
It's gorgeous. I love that guitar.
Plain Barrow walnut top. Spotted gum back. Jarrah neck.
I love the detail where the scarf joint is on the neck as well. Hey,
Yeah.
before you put it up,
There you go.
I was going to say before you put it back, but you're plugging it in, so perfect. What scale is it?
26 and a half. Yeah, it's got an AMG in it as well. And he wanted a on-off switch.
Nice. Where's that going? Is it somewhere you can hand deliver it or pass it over, or has it got to be posted?
He was going to come get it because he lives in Sydney, which is about 3.5 hours away. But he's been doing 14, 16-hour days. So I'm going to ship it off to him either tomorrow or Monday.
Nice.
I think of Monday so it doesn't have to sit anywhere over the weekend. And, yeah, might as well do it since we're going soon. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick up the neck or not.
That looks great.
Yeah, amazing. For some reason, I hadn't noticed the cavity cover before. Love it.
Yeah, I only did that last week. But I don't know if I'll come closer or not. But the neck's held up really well, actually. And the front, it's got a J hole for Yergs.
Looks good.
And I don't know whether to put like a little pick guard over the top of the. I probably can't see it because of that. There's a mark here where the fabric lifted. But I've got an offcut from the top, which I could use as like a pick guard.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. I could go there-ish, have that gloss and
pretty good.
Yeah, I like the matte and I like the because the top's MDF. It's gonna wear, but it sounds really good too.
I think I like that pick guard there. I think it looked good.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I might do like a poll on Instagram or whatever, but I'm not sure. No, that
Sounded like my neighbours at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I've got a Boss Katana and I've got like this. The good thing about it is you can go hands free with it as well. But just tune down the B.
that looks really awesome, Corey.
That's cool.
I'm really happy with it. I broke 2 screws putting the doing the strap button there. So I had to cut a plug and put a dowel in there. But I'm stoked. I want to do another one this shape too.
Again, if there's anyone watching that doesn't know about this, on the forum, there's info at the end about that. Corey's got a whole post about the Yergs Cup 2 and how that's going to work. I need to make a little video for the outro of this about it as well. But the theme this year, for anyone to build along to and share your images, the idea is we're going to all build, share, and sort of grow a community, is making a guitar using wood bought from a hardware store, your local, whatever you call them in America, Americans out there.
Big Box or Home Depot.
For me, my local would be a B&Q.
Me too.
So I was thinking about that, about it being wood from a local hardware store, and so like, well, that's a bit of a problem for me. The solution I've got is that I'm going to use the plastic line from a whippersnipper or weed eater. You know,
That's got to be a viral post. That's going to be brilliant.
That'd be brilliant. That'd be so cool.
Well, that would work through a 3D printer, would it?
The tolerances would be way off, but it would work all right, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Look, you know what? You'd be surprised in the very early days of 3D printing when you couldn't just grab a roll of filament. Weed eater line got used quite a bit.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's almost like harking back to the old days doing that.
Yeah, that'd make a great video. That one, little clip doing that. Especially if you take it off the weed whacker first and then put it in the printer.
You haven't seen me. You've seen me use a whippersnipper. There's no line left when I'm done.
Round up.
In the concrete, take it all out.
Round
So
up.
I've just realised I haven't updated the description for this video, so I'll do that a little bit later, and so it will include links to everybody's YouTube pages or Instagram pages, so you can go and check out photos of all of everyone's work and things like that. But we've been nearly 2 hours, so I think we better say goodbye.
It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Fun.
I don't get an option midweek to drop in. I just have to have this week off work, so it was really good to be part of it and get to meet people that I've been looking at on YouTube for the last 2 years. So I feel like I know you and you don't know me at all.
Yeah,
so
well,
great.
I now know what your face looks like, as opposed to seeing photos of guitars and description and comments in the chat. So that's brilliant. And as I said at the beginning, if anyone like Owen is a regular that's watching, wants to join in, just send us a message. That'd be fantastic.
Just quickly too, Neil, that we're talking about, NSJ, he's already finished his Yergs Cup as well. Second year in a row.
Was it a race? Was it? Were you having a secret bet?
He just gets in and cranks it out.
Yeah.
He's a madman. There's no way around it. Like he's nearly finished the Les Paul already, and he just finished a Coppertelli last week, I think.
Amazing.
Nuts. Good to have you too.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for watching, and see you all soon.
Take it in.
Yes.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Right, can't stop it. There we go. The Guitar Builders Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi.